When we talk about who poses the greatest threat to Alexander Volkanovski during his second run as UFC featherweight champion, one expert believes it won't be his most likely upcoming opponent. Volkanovski has been waiting to find out who he'll fight next ever since he reclaimed his championship belt at UFC 314 back in April. After Ilia Topuria gave up the title, Volkanovski defeated Diego Lopes in an outstanding performance that proved he still has plenty left in the tank. The first person expected to challenge Volkanovski in his new reign at 145 pounds is Lerone Murphy. Murphy earned his shot by knocking out Aaron Pico at UFC 319 in August. However, instead of pointing to the unbeaten English fighter, one UFC expert believes the Australian champion's most difficult battle will actually be against the same man he defeated just 5 months ago. UFC analyst names Diego Lopes as the biggest threat to Alexander Volkanovski. Lopes bounced back from his title fight loss by finishing Juan Silva at Noche UFC this past Saturday. This victory put him right back in contention for another championship opportunity. UFC veteran Michael Chiesa wants to see the champion take on fighters he hasn't faced before. But Chiesa, known as Maverick, considers the Brazilian crowd favorite to be Volkanovski's toughest challenge despite what happened in Miami earlier this year. For the remaining time we have with Volkanovski, I believe we want to see fresh matchups, Chiesa told MMA Junkie's Mike Bone on the Bonefire show. I think Lerone Murphy has definitely earned his opportunity, honestly. Being undefeated in main events in the UFC, and taking a risk by accepting a fight on just 3 weeks' notice at UFC 319, he had a difficult weight cut and still took on Aaron Pico, who is extremely dangerous. I'm a huge Diego Lopes supporter, Chiesa continued. I believe the biggest challenge for Volkanovski isn't Lerone Murphy. I think the biggest challenge for Volkanovski will be Diego Lopes, because he really pushed him hard in that first fight. A fighter with Diego Lopes' skill level only gets better after a defeat when they're in their prime. He's been training at Oklahoma State Wrestling, and honestly I think that rematch with Lopes is the most dangerous fight for Volkanovski right now. Lerone Murphy disagrees about Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes too. One person who strongly disagrees with Chiesa's opinion is the widely recognized #1 contender at 145 pounds. While Murphy reinforced his claim for the Volkanovski fight on social media, the British fighter dismissed Lopes' case by arguing that a rematch with the Australian would end exactly like their UFC 314 main event. Diego performed amazingly against Silva, but nothing much changes in a rematch against Volk, Murphy wrote on X. The people want to see new matchups. I'm 17-0 for a reason. It's my time. Justin Gaethje has delivered so many incredible fights throughout his career that some classics, like the one that took place on this day 10 years ago, might be overlooked. There isn't a nickname that fits the former interim UFC lightweight champion better than the highlight. It's difficult to think of any fighter who has produced amazing fights as consistently as Gaethje, which many believe should guarantee him a title shot the next time around. The 36-year-old finds himself in a somewhat challenging situation right now after saying he would retire if he doesn't get a chance at the championship belt. While Gaethje's disagreements with the UFC have put his career on pause for now, fans will always have his amazing collection of fights to remember. Justin Gaethje beat Luis Palomino in a war for a second time on this day in 2015. Before Justin Gaethje knocked out Michael Johnson to introduce himself to UFC fans in 2017, he was already building a reputation as one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. The highlight became the first World Series of Fighting lightweight champion in 2014. This organization later became the PFL. He held on to the belt until he signed with the UFC. During that period, he successfully defended his title 5 times. 2 of those title defenses came against the exact same opponent. Gaethje's first battle with Luis Palomino at WSOF 19 in March of 2015 was exactly what you would expect from the champion during this stage of his career. It was a wild fight where both men got hurt badly. The contest ended in the 3rd round after Gaethje punished his opponent with his unusual leg kicks. On this day 10 years ago, they met for their second fight at WSOF 23. The defending champion was badly hurt during the first round. However, once again, Gaethje somehow managed to absorb all the punishment coming his way and gradually broke down Palomino with his relentless pressure and high work rate. Gaethje, who included takedowns in this fight unlike his UFC career, finished the show in the second round with a devastating right hand after staying in his opponent's face from start to finish. Luis Palomino has gone on to become one of the staples of BKFC. Even though Luis Palomino has 43 professional MMA fights on his record, he hasn't competed under those rules since May of 2019. Instead, he has spent the last 5 years as one of the biggest names on the BKFC roster. He previously held the promotion's lightweight championship before giving up the title last year. Palomino made BKFC history in 2022 when he became the promotion's first fighter to hold 2 championship belts at the same time. He achieved this by beating Elvin Brito for the welterweight belt. The 44-year-old last fought this past March where he defeated Howard Davis by unanimous decision to win the inaugural BKFC King of Streets Championship.